I'm Taryn Rosenkrantz, and this is Political TrailMix, where strategy meets storytelling, and every episode unpacks the people, power, and politics shaping our country. Let's dig in. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Political TrailMix. I am once again excited to bring all my friends here. And this one in particular has been a longtime friend and colleague. I actually really credit her much of the time for helping me to go out on my own and start my own business. So kudos to you, my friend. I know those who maybe aren't fans of my business, well, then this is her fault.
I'll
But
take it.
I do. I've known her for so long, but I won't age us because we're so young. Who could not? But I would say it's probably been many decades. But I just want to introduce my friend Jen, who's here with me today. She is now an established author, which I love even more. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today and everything else in between. So, will you tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend?
Sure. I'm Jen Pihlaja. I use she, her pronouns. I am a coach, a facilitator, a recovering perfectionist, uh, a
I'm not
dog
recovering, so I
mom.
love
Yeah.
that.
I'm a Midwesterner who's, moved to DC 30 years ago, which is,
Wow.
I just did age us.
That's
But
okay. Now
yeah,
people are
I'm
now people
friend
are
of,
in on it.
yeah, are they? Friend of Taryn is an identity I really appreciate and enjoy. So I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for this space you're creating and like the conversations you're having. I think it's awesome.
Well, I just love, love, love everything about this wonderful book that you are a part of. And I just think I actually, Jen wrote a chapter in the book Leading from Within. And I have to say, I liked the whole book. Yours, of course, was the best. But I did like the whole book. And one of the things that many of you would not know, but Jen and I love business books. And like this has been our thing for years that we would like go out to lunch and be like, oh, I read this good new business book. And Brene Brown says. And we spent a lot of time doing this. And when Jen totally like pivoted again and became a coach and facilitator, it was like so amazing that she actually got to write one of these books. So I was really excited, and I have to say it is really powerful, and I recommend everyone read it. It's great. But I want you to tell me a little bit, like the title sort of says it, and what a little bit about your chapter was about, and what kind of inspired this.
Sure, sure. Leading from within. So I had this intention for my 50th year, which was last year, and that my intention for the year was going to be go. Like, I don't know, it kind of looked like 50. It was two letters. Like I was like, this is, I'm not a big New Year's person. I love a new chapter, right? Like I love a opportunity to reset and take stock, but like just decided, I don't know, probably 10 years ago that I was going to have a word for the year. And in
Yeah,
last year, the word was go. And so I did a lot of exploring, and try to just stay open to like, oh, like invitations to go somewhere, to do something, to move. And so I had this amazing woman, Shantae Christian, in my network that I worked with through our work with the Georgetown community around coaching and other transformational leadership programs that they had there. I was a graduate of their facilitation training program. And she and I made this, had this relationship, and she talked to me about this work that she is doing as an author, as a publisher, and invited
yeah.
me to participate in this volume. And I didn't really think about it too hard, which
That's good. That's what kept you going.
that's why I said, oh, of course, yes, I
You
will
got to
do
be
that.
open
That
to
kept me
saying
going.
yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I agreed to write this chapter, and then promptly moved on, and then realized I actually had to write it like last summer. So it was, and I love writing. I think it's a good way for me to sort through a lot of
Yeah.
things in my head. Whether or not anyone sees them is, a little bit different story. So it was a bit of a like, I'm gonna write something, and in very uncharacteristic fashion, like I think the only person that really read it before it existed on paper was Ben, my
Yeah.
husband. Um, and as the sweet, sweet, sweet husband of mine was not like the most critical reader in the world. It was
Yeah,
more
no, I
just
mean,
like
I kind of want Ben to read something I write. Like, I feel like he's just a nice person in general. And like, he's the kind of person you send to for you to be like, great job, like
a lot of positivity in
a
that
lot of
man.
positivity. I would totally send the next thing I write to Ben.
Yeah, please do. He will be happy. He'd be so
Because you
happy to
need
read it.
that. Like, we get torn up a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I need a little softball. I love that.
And it was good in that sense that I wasn't asking for permission to tell a part of my story, right?
Oh,
Like I was just like, this is what it is. This is and the so the story I wrote about sort of had three parts. One was and it was all centered on like reflecting back on, turning 50 and what that meant
yeah,
to me and the things that were coming up around just sort of pivotal moments in my life. And 5 years before, I had been diagnosed with a really weird random cancer, right? Like a weird
yeah.
as a vaginal melanoma. And it like as my doctor said at the time, this might rock your world for a little while. And it did, right? Like it was
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it was a
It'll
thing.
do
We
that.
yeah, and then we'll do that. And we all, um have stories and we all and I spent a lot of my life helping people figure out telling their story, right? And that part of like my career really excited me and was rewarding to me. Um, and thinking about telling a little bit of my story, starting with that or that being a part of that frame was a real big watershed is the wrong thing to say. Yeah, it made me it awakened me to a lot of different things. And I I talked about my cancer journey. Um, which I'm happy to talk about more if that's useful. But like that was a part of it. The second part of my of this of the and really the timing of this was like when I had been diagnosed and then had
Yeah.
surgery that Thanksgiving, it was 2019. I was just like recovering sort of in February. By February, I kind of went back to work for um and and then the world shut down in March, right? And so it was a real, I couldn't have follow-up appointments. Like there was a lot of uncertainty around what
I
was going
mean,
to happen.
terrifying, terrifying. And I actually remember, believe it or not, like you came into my thoughts so many times because there was like they were like stopping treatments and I was like, "Oh, but Jen had her surgery, but like is she gonna be like it's so nerve-wracking and when you're facing a medical situation, you want to be reassured by going and having follow-ups and you just it was so so hard and I always thought of you then. So when I read this
Mm,
again in your chapter, I was like, "Oh, I feel this in my bones,"
yeah.
right? Which is why I think what's so wonderful about what you wrote was that it's so very personal and leadership does come from within and it does come from that being vulnerable and personal and really sharing it certainly inspired me
Mm,
definitely yeah and like I really was like oh I did not remember how traumatic even just not having cancer and having COVID but like the COVID shutdown like that ability right yeah
yeah.
yeah
It was it
it's
that
hard
that time period and that turn really gave me like a lot of I talk about like looking inward and
yeah
what like sort of doing a lot of exploration. I talk about this. I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach. I love sort of like I love an assessment. I love a give me a tool to like
yeah
figure
yeah
things out, right? And so I was the girl doing the sassy quizzes like back in
Oh
our day, right?
God,
Like
Sassy, you're really aging us, but that was like my favorite magazine
I
by far.
mean Jane
But yes.
Pratt for president, right? So so I've always enjoyed that aspect of like but I didn't, it wasn't something I ever spent a lot of time on. It was like really um we just kept moving. We just kept
Yeah.
moving and doing the things and like what else is on the list? Let's cross it off and like, dealt with it. I think that both like having that like shift the sort of shift I took in my career. I like less of a full hard pivot all the way, but
Hmm.
like I just like a part of my path that where I was focusing on helping. I had decided and had my business practices coaching and facilitation, and how that has evolved into that is I just knew that I wanted to spend the next 20 years, or as the in 2017 when I really started that shift, was to work with the individuals and teams who are doing hard things,
Yeah.
who yeah, and to continue and to do that. And so this sort of self awareness and self exploration thing felt really important to me then. And I think of that spring of 2020, um, which, was just like a real deep dive inside. Like what is actually important to me? And if I let go
Hmm.
of a lot of the bullshit around what I think is important, like what's happening to me, what's happening in the world right now, what's happening, which was COVID and the systemic,
Yeah.
racism that was being so,
Yeah.
where we were with George Floyd,
Yeah.
and his murder, and the continuation of like how those issues were really brought to light in such a vivid and not even brought to light. I don't, but were really being explored in such a vivid way. Like it really gave me a lot of um things I wanted to maybe things that were connecting in my brain, right? And so I think
Yeah.
writing about it and that second part really led me to like what's important to me going forward. Like if I have none of us, we all have things in our health and our um things in our path. Like none of us are guaranteed tomorrow, right? And there's this concept. I went to a conference on happiness last year, and the I got to sit next to this guy, this kid who was, I mean, he was like 19. He wasn't a kid, but he was kind of a kid. And at some point, and he was like there as a student, and and he said to me at some point, he goes, "Oh man, do happiness researchers always talk so much about death?" And I was just like, like
Oh my God, I never thought about that, but that is really true
they
because
kind of
that's
do. They kind of do. Like there's all of this, and I have this little thing that a speaker there gave me, and it's a little iridescent casket, kind of like
hmm
memento
hmm
mori reminder of like we're all just here for a minute.
Yeah.
And like what was really important to me in that minute, and it was really a clarifying experience for me. So I hopefully in my chapter, I thought I wouldn't have like 10 words to string together. I want like made it like I wound up editing three-quarters of it out. But it was that thinking about what's important to me and where I draw that inner strength from,
Yeah.
which is and tying sort of some of these together about what that means for me as a leader or as a human being. Like we're all
Yeah.
leaders, right? So that thank you for reading it.
Of course,
Thank
it
you
was great.
for supporting that. And more people should do things like do
Tell their
to talk about
story,
their
right?
story.
Well,
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that, like your history, your like who's going to tell your history and who's going to tell your story and what's important to you that is part of your story or your narrative, right?
Yeah.
And it's so true because Jen was how I met Jen all these years ago was that she was a political consultant, and she helped people to create ads and to tell their stories and to get out there and to manage campaigns and do all these different things, but ran a media firm for a long time. And I have to say, it's like, it was so refreshing that, like, us who do this a lot of telling other people's stories don't really reflect sometimes our own or share or be vulnerable or any of the things. And I was like really inspired by that. It was like, you kind of have to actually show your true feelings every once in a while, right? Like you do have to be a
Yeah.
little vulnerable. I actually remember,
Mm.
I think I had this conversation with you and you told me that, to be fair, but I just remember once I like was really upset at work, like I was leading a staff meeting and I got like teary-eyed about something and I was like humiliated for days. Like I wanted to like hide under my desk and everyone
Oh,
was
I
like,
remember
no,
that.
you need to be, yeah, you're like, yes, I do remember that conversation. But you were like, no, you need to be vulnerable. Like it's real. Like people don't hate you for being real. Like you were upset and people like it, like appreciate a leader who is like real. Like it's okay. That means that they're not alone if they're feeling that way, you know.
Mm.
We're all humans. Leading within, I love it. And I have to say, I really do feel like this pivot from political operative to coaching doesn't always naturally feel like the most important thing, but it's like you've probably got a lot of really good material from all the years of working with politicians. But I want you to put your coaching hat on for a second. I got a
Oh,
little fuzzy here. Sorry. Put
no,
your
I'm
there you
very
go.
clear about hats. I
Yeah, yeah,
talk
yeah.
about
So
that
put
all the
your
time.
coaching
Like
hat on for a second. I
facilitate hat,
mean, you live in DC. We live here.
yes.
We live and breathe. Someone told me a story. I think it was yesterday that they were like, somebody was like, "Oh, I'm going to DC for a field trip. Should I can't, I'm chaperoning my kids' field trip. Should we cancel?" And they're like, "Why?" Like, but the world feels that way, right? Like, so,
Yeah, no, I get it.
but I do think like, well, some of us that are living and breathing in politics, some of us are not living and breathing in politics, but we can't escape it because it's our everyday lives. I mean, just everything that's going on here in Washington, but even no matter where you are in the world, how do we stay sane? I've been asking a lot of people think about this. Obviously, I'm not feeling sane, so I keep asking people like, how do we stay sane? That's what
Yeah.
everyone wants to know, or maybe just me. But
Mm.
I do think like I'm a leader, you're a leader, we're all leaders, and we need to be sort of sane and find our moments
Yeah.
of pause and reflection. And I just would love your coaching hat, coach. Tell me, what should I do to stay sane?
Mm. Well, in a coaching conversation, I wouldn't tell you, I would ask you a question about what you just said, which is, you know, you mentioned those pockets that we all need to find. I think those pockets are really important. And I think we like everyone is, there's an individual can it is so human for an individual to feel overwhelmed, to
Yeah,
feel like there's so much going on in the world. So if we were in a coaching conversation, I would dig into that because you are going to have your own way, your ways
my best
of,
way. We all have our best way then. Is
yeah.
that sort of, yeah, yeah,
One
that's
thing
like
that's
fine.
helpful to me though right now is that I come back to, I mean, there's a lot of things that are helpful to me right now. I'm, fully in managing stress, like, and stress and sadness and
Yeah, it's a lot of emotions all at once.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, a lot of things. And I think that the thing that sometimes when that does feel overwhelming to me that I come back to is the concept around like what's this my sphere of concern, which
Hmm.
is big. Like I care about a lot of things and it can, so many things that fit into this big huge sphere of concern, things I'm really concerned about. And then there's a smaller sphere that they talk about somebody much smarter than me. I'm just constantly talking about things that I learned from people much smarter than me and qualified to do these things. But is the idea of sphere of influence, right? Like what can I control or influence in my own world right now? Like I might not be able to do anything about all of the things I care about, but like if I can take an honest look at where I put my own capacity, my own resources, my own energy, like where I can put my attention.
Yeah.
That is what I can control and or what I can try to,
Little victories, little moments, like
sure.
yeah, yeah, it is true. Like what you can control. If you can make an impact on something and even if it's small, then at least you've made an impact. I kind of try to live by that a lot and it gets lost. So it's such a good reminder.
Yeah.
Like yes, there's all of this fear of concern, but
Yeah.
we can
When we're
make
feeling all of
yeah.
this, be like, okay, but what about what can
What
I,
about this
what's the
really
little thing?
small one thing that I can do? And
Yeah.
because those are the victories. I mean, I have a dear friend who, lifelong friend, and she always made fun of me because when I first was in my 20s and we lived together, we would write, I would write my to-do list and I would cross off like wake up. And she'd be like, that is ridiculous. What are you doing? And I go, I need a victory. Okay. Like, if there's going to be nothing that I get done on my to-do list today, I woke up.
I want to celebrate that victory. I totally hear you.
She was like, you
It's like,
cannot put wake up on a to-do list. I'm like, well, why
it's
not?
not your to-do list, it's my to-do
That's what I
list.
said. I was like, you don't have to judge my to-do list. I don't quite write wake up, but I still have pretty minor things sometimes, just so that I can cross them off because I need a little victory. Because
Sometimes
sometimes
it's
you feel
like,
like
oh,
the to-do is never ending, right? So like you need a yeah. So
I
maybe
like my
I'll call her up after
variation.
this and tell her you said I was right,
Yeah,
and you're a
please do.
coach.
Please do. My variation on that is like what's something I've done that I can cross off, right? And
Yeah,
I joke yeah, like wake up like or oh, I already did that. Okay, great. I can see progress on that.
yeah,
It's a thing that comes up in strengths when I do strengths coaching with folks a lot too, and it's one of my top strengths is achiever, which doesn't it's just what that like sort of translates into is like you want that
yeah.
satisfaction. Crossing
You
it
want
off
the
actually like
satisfaction. Yeah,
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 is
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
can
yeah,
be
yeah,
very
yeah.
hardworking. Like we'll
Oh,
get we'll get a project to the finish line.
oh yeah. Come hell or high water, I will finish
Yeah,
that
yeah,
project.
yeah.
But there are people who abandon it. But like I like to me, I'm like I must like I can't leave that hanging thread.
And sometimes when does that show up too much, right? When you're
Oh
like,
yeah, I
when,
know a lot of times.
right? Like when is
You
it
ask
like
anyone in my family, they'll be like, "You should have let that thread go."
Reese and I have a text chain. I'll ask her about it. And
Yeah.
um but what does how does that show up too much? How does that let you be vulnerable to burnout? Like, how does that
Yeah.
let you,
Yeah.
like, just keep giving when there's nothing left in the tank? How does that let you, not, just like show up in a way that doesn't honor that sometimes what you need to put on your list and cross off is like rest.
Yeah. Wake up.
Time to
Wake up
think.
from that
Mhm.
app.
Yeah.
Get up and face it. Because what you're really saying is, and I hear you, which is that like you need sometimes to not finish that last thing or stay up late to finish something. Like just go to bed or rest or take a break or, go for that walk. And that's hard. That's hard for, as you said at the beginning, you're a recovering perfectionist. For those of us who are not quite there, recovering, it's hard to let those things go, but you're right. Like that really is what gets you there. It really does. I love when people say things like self-care and those kinds of things, and I'm always like, oh yeah, but it's like
Yeah.
what I do think that we don't take enough care of ourselves, Oh, it raised my hand. I love that. There you go. Forgot.
I think it's amazing. You had something to say. Like, let it out.
We don't always take care of ourselves, but and I think that when we struggle, I was sort of like raised, my parents definitely are these parents who are like, don't ever ask for help. Um, if they actually were listening to this podcast, they might get insulted, but I'm not sure they are. We'll see.
Mine will
Uh,
not. I mean, I don't
yeah,
think. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's okay. They're good
Mhm.
fans and they do listen, but they probably watch the like clips, not the
Fair.
But what I was going to say is that they didn't always encourage me to ask for help. Like they're
Yeah.
very like independent, and that's wonderful of them. And I've always admired them for this like steadfastness. But I sort of
Yes.
figured out like at some point in my career that like I couldn't do it alone. I could not be them. I like needed help. I needed help with the kids. I needed help with work and balance and all these things. I was like, I just can't do this. Something's got to give. And I think we don't share our struggles enough. That I appreciated about your book and the chapter in it was that it was very personal and it was very much like, here's what I struggled with, so you can understand your own journey and struggles. And was it hard to be vulnerable there? Like how like I know we talked a little bit about this before, but like was it hard or was it refreshing? Do you know what I'm
Mm.
trying to like sort of say like maybe it's hard, but maybe it's both. Like maybe that's the answer. But
Hmm. Yeah, that's such a great question. I think it was much. easier. I mean, I have a much easier to hmm, it was it wasn't hard to do. I referred to it and I texted Shantae like the day the book came out and I got like a first thing from someone that was like, "Oh, I read your chapter." Oh, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I think I just have like a vulnerability hangover." I think that our friend Brene Brown talked about that maybe in
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
her
Yeah. Yeah.
research. But that's sort of like, "Oh, I mean, I said the word vagina like 17 times in that chapter." Right? Like,
When you have a vagina melanoma, that's what happens. You have to
well,
use it.
and I'm sort of like, and that was like a conscious decision at some point. There was a little bit like, "Oh, do I want to like use a euphemism for this or be like,"
Mm.
and I'm like, "Well,
But it's
people
real,
have
and that's what it
vaginas.
is.
Like, we're
And
just
that's what we
gonna
all
do
go
that."
through, right? Are
Yeah.
real things to our bodies. Like that's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
So there was that element of like the vulnerability, personal, like did I just like like do too much about that?
yeah,
And just the like vulnerability around the thing that you're talking about so smartly, which was, the lessons we
yeah,
learned. My parents were similar and I grew up in this, Finnish American family and there's this concept that I grew up with a very specific feeling about what it meant, which is this word called sisu. And it sort of doesn't have a direct translation, but it's the kind of like this the thing that keeps you going, right? Like where do you what I and what it how it presented was like as this real like kind of like a very masculine like just rub some dirt on it like you can get through anything like and the first time this word I think appeared like in the New York Times was like in relation to like the war and like Finnish fighters and beating the Russians and all of this, like a very like
yeah, yeah,
sisu, like,
yeah.
which like I'm a little bit more gooey and um
Yeah.
but gooey is not the, I'm the strength. I was a moment to like so many moments are about like learning, unlearning, relearning. And like that concept is grounding to me because to me, it's like, and Elizabeth Lotte is a researcher who has done a lot of important, amazing like work that like
Yeah,
I love on this, but she talks about it being like sometimes the hardest thing can be to say no to something, right? Or to like be gentle with ourselves.
yeah,
What? Like be gentle with ourselves. Like that's the opposite of that the perception of that I always had. So it was I think that's part of like the culture from that standpoint, like my family
yeah,
culture, a little bit of my community culture. But also like, our generation. Like we
yeah.
were the latchkey kids and the like,
I know we talk about this a lot. The Gen Xers are the ones that were like, "Oh, we nothing affects us." We watched the Challenger blow up, and they just like pulled the TV away, and we're like, "Let's take a math test," right? Like
like
that was like that's
I know.
reality.
Mr. Jacobson's room, like we didn't, he was the best, and they pulled, yes, I've
We
been
didn't
talking
talk
about that.
about feelings. We just moved on. Like
Yeah,
they were like, "Well, that's unfortunate. Let's
yeah,
let's just talk to your parents about it if you want, if they'll let you." Like,
yeah.
let's just move on.
And
Yeah,
we really have this like generation, like it shows up in our work lives, right? It shows up in our
yeah.
personal lives, it shows up in our work lives,
True.
our aunting, our parenting, whatever it is, it like that is so evident, and we like, but it also it shows up too much, like our strengths
Yeah,
can show up like sometimes too much, they talk about our greatest like what we think of as our weaknesses can really, might just be like when we are too much of the thing that we're as our amazing in our superpower and we're not like managing that or regulating
right.
that with what other individuals need in the world. And so um I think the generational piece of it is also important. And I think I've relearned, I love the relationship that I've been able to build with like colleagues who are 20 years older than me, colleagues who are 20 years younger than me. Like, I
Yeah,
think that there's so much to be learned from each other and
100%. Yeah.
really great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, like, a lot of the folks that we work with a new blue, I are younger than me. I mean, frequently the oldest person in the room. But one of the I find it refreshing that they are open about everything and like I find that like I'm like, oh wow, we're gonna talk about that? Okay. Like, I think that's great, right? And I find that in our work, and there's a question here, I promise. But in our work, like when we're doing work, it's like I'm trying to tell our politicians now to be more real. I think that's why you're seeing younger um, electeds get elected and have momentum because they're being refreshingly real and authentic. And people are
Yeah.
like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for. Like, it's
Yeah.
no more of this like shiny politician who's kissing babies, right? Like, it's like, how can I show you how real I can very much be? And those who don't get there aren't getting there, right? Like, that's why you're sort of seeing this new brand of a politician. Um, my question to you is that I do
Hmm.
think that I said this earlier. I was like, interesting pivot into coaching, which I think is like a natural fit for you because I feel like I was always like asking you, asking you advice and signing up for my armchair coaching long before I knew you were going to officially be a facilitator and coach. But I'm curious, like, do you think there's lessons you learned from the electeds? I
Hmm.
mean, maybe I just gave one that was a bad one, but a good one to the younger folks. But I'm just curious if there were lessons you feel like when you're going into coaching that you were like, oh, I know how to deal with this or whatever it is.
Yeah, I talked before about like the hats, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like for a long time, I did work as a campaign manager and then like in the political space as, in these jobs that we would call like desks or,
Yeah.
political directors and that type of thing. And I loved that job. I thought that job was amazing and I would be so much better at that job now in this point. Um, but I learned something every day in that job. Um, I learned something and then as a media consultant, I learned something about somebody's story or the
Oh,
story
yeah.
that, all of the time. And I really think of like this path, the reason I think what got me interested in facilitation was like putting a name to something that I felt like I wanted to know more about. Right.
Yeah.
Like the how we come together, right? Like how the art of gathering, as Priya Parker calls it, like how we come together, how we like bring people together. You know, I could, I think that in the political space, that works really well for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just saw a lot of instances, I think, over time where I was like, I think we can do this differently. And I think we can do this in a way that is more inclusive and in a
Mm-hmm.
way that like we're just making sure more voices are heard. And so to me, like gaining that some more skill around that is was really important. And then saying like, okay, I'm gonna facilitate group processes, like whether that's like, for team building or strategic planning or it's like fine tuning operations, like whatever the things like, I've gained a lot of experience and to some, about some of those things, expertise, but really being conscious of like my role here is to understand what the group needs and the group
Right.
wants and like how to like make sure all of the voices in that group are being heard so that we can like move forward where from wherever they are move forward. And so the facilitation piece, I was at a part of a lot of great teams, and the part of working in politics is you get to be a part of so many different teams, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
just a lot of wonderful people doing really, really hard things in the world, like with the intensity of the timeline and the intensity, the
Mm-hmm.
pressure of there's so many people who do this work because they like deeply held values and belief about like making the world better, like and making it and so that is like a lot to carry. And sometimes that resulted in like the urgency overtaking sort of the humanness of like the what we were doing, like being the most important thing versus like paying attention to the how we were doing it. So like having a meeting, but like the how we were having a meeting may not have been a priority, let alone the why or the who or the other sort of important factors of this. And how you want, my the facilitation program I went through taught me a thing about that I'll just use forever, which is like if you're gathering people together, like how do you want them to feel at the end as a
Oh,
result of
yeah.
it? Like the ABCs, like what the
Yeah.
effective goal, like what do you want people to feel? Oh, hello, thumbs up.
I
Um,
know. I got the raising of the hand. You got
yeah, I mean, like some, I can't get the anyway. The B goal, like the behavioral goal, like what are folks going to do together, or what are they going to do as a result of being together? Or the C, the cognitive goals, like what are they going to know as a result of being together? And like meetings and gatherings, like can serve lots of different purposes, but like let's be more purposeful about them, right?
Oh
So
yeah. Purposeful is such a perfect word for it too. It's like
yeah.
that's what like you really it's like I love that. Like how do you want people to lead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the
Um,
coaching thing, I just to really briefly say, like, the thing I learn and love about being a coach is, and what is making me, I'm letting go of a lot of the consulting hat that I
yeah,
used to
yeah, yeah.
wear, or the advisor hat, or the like expectation that I, you know, in some cases knew a few things, but in other cases, like,
You- Yeah.
oh, like I always approached that work, I think, truly when I was my best at that work was about being like um collaborative. Was about
Yeah.
being like what else needs to be said? Like what's being
Yeah.
unsaid? What are the things like was a place like came from a place of curiosity. And so coaching is not any of the advising, right? Like I'm happy to I will, but coaching is not um being the desk for someone's life. Like coaching is
Right.
about like helping, like what sort of sitting down at the desk with them and being like, okay, like what do we got here? Like what do you
Let's
think is
look at this
important?
together. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
let's look at this
Well, it's
together.
like coaching is not playing the game. It's leading the game, leading you to get there, right? Helping
Yeah,
you to be better at your own game, whatever that sport may be. The
yeah,
other when I try, just so you all, everyone knows, like whenever I try to make a sports reference, it's only in relation to my children. And I'm not as athlete in any way, shape, or form. I'm like, what do you call things? I always say like the wrong thing, like score,
we
basket, points, whatever.
swimming,
I don't know. Goals.
are we lacrossing? I don't know. I don't know those. I only know basketball and football analogies, really. I should get
Yeah,
better at the
I
rest.
barely know those. Yeah, my kids play a lot of soccer, so I do sit on soccer fields a lot. So, and those like score goal, I kind of get that. Those rules aren't that complicated. Reese plays lacrosse. They're
Yeah,
very complicated rules.
I
I
know.
told someone yesterday the only rule I think I know is that when there's momentum in the game, the whistle blows. So like you should just know like whenever anybody like starts like heading towards the goal, you're like they're gonna blow the whistle. They do every time. I don't know how anyone scores any goals because they blow the whistle as soon as there's momentum. You're like, oh, look, this
Oh,
is gonna happen. Nah, nah, blow the whistle.
yeah, sports balls and nets. I don't know. So many things going on
Oh,
with it.
so
Yeah.
many things, so
Yeah.
many things, so many things. I will say, if you be a little nostalgic for a second,
Oh,
do you
I
have a
love it.
favorite? Like, I've been asking almost everyone that comes on because a lot of these folks we were on the trails with, on these teams with, being here together, the purposeful. But I'm just wondering, you have a favorite? Maybe it's from the campaign trail because I know you worked on a lot of campaigns, but also it may have been from when you were a media person, like so you're on a shoot with candidates. Is there some favorite memory or story that,
Mm.
could almost make you nostalgic for your prior life here?
Mm. It's a great question. I also loved that. And it
Yeah,
was like there's things about it I miss all the time.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and the things I get nostalgic for are some of the things I try to bring into my work now, which is, developer also shows up in my top 5 in my
yeah,
strengths profile.
yeah.
And I love helping people like figure out their own genius and their own superpowers. Like I loved working with like when working with campaign managers, working with
Hmm.
candidates.
Yeah.
Um and sort of helping them figure out how to put the pieces together.
And I'm actually realizing, like I said this earlier, but I really am realizing. So when she says she works at a political desk, like, so we worked for the political campaign committees, so Democratic committees, and then you really are kind of coaching those managers. You're coaching them as like, because you're like a regional desk or you were the incumbent direct. So it's like you're working with these people in these campaigns to make them their best campaign, right? Like you're kind of coaching them. I was just thinking about that, like when we were doing our sports analogies, I'm like, oh, I can
Yeah.
see how you were kind of always already doing this. Yeah.
It was my approach, um, and I would love to say that I always was effective at that. Like, there's a lot of different parts of management
Yeah.
that come into play, right? Like, are you like coaching? Are you supporting? Are you delegating? Are you, you know, directing, right? Like, and I think that that's a really unique role in that I think it's like you talked about before about this individualization around like seeing people as individuals, and I always I think tried to approach things like that.
Yeah.
That what is useful. I think it's one of the challenges is too many people don't sort of think about how not every situation is the same.
Yeah. Well, not every situation is the same, and it's a hard lesson to learn because you want to apply the same approach, right? Might make
Yeah,
life a little easier, but
yeah.
it's never the same. Well, I will say one last thing. I'm so glad that you did make this pivot. I think it's been wonderful. I mean, I think
Mm.
is there something you would like a piece of advice you would give to coach campaigns and political operatives and politicians to sort of do better, or something that you now feel like you've learned, that might be your advice or your piece of strength that they could do better,
Mm.
we could do better. I put myself in there.
I think, oh, that is it's a great a piece of advice. Oh, if I could put on my advice giving hat,
Mm-hmm.
um, I would say be you
Yeah.
and know what that means.
Yeah. Which goes back to the book. That was really like that's the inspiration in that chapter that you wrote. I feel like it's like no, know you, right? Because that's the
Yeah,
best leader you can be is when you know where you're leading from and
yeah.
really who you are. I love that. All right, I've asked every guest for prediction for the
Hmm.
midterms. Gonna have to ask a new
Oh,
question after November. We're getting close. So, what is your prediction for the midterms? Don't worry, we don't hold anyone to this, and there's no money involved.
I'm a house girly. I'm always cheering for that house of that unruly body of what they are. We're gonna win the house in 2026.
Hmm.
And I am also like I just get really excited about so many people in state legislatures and places around the
Hmm.
country who are like stepping into leadership in their own
Yeah,
way and like their their energy
yeah,
and compassion and conviction to be a part of, creating what can be a really amazing world, a better democracy, that, the promise that we're still working towards of what that can be for everybody. And I think that there's lots of people who are doing really great things all over the country.
yeah,
And so I think there's going to be a lot of I hope that there's a lot of people
yeah.
who are celebrating.
Yeah, I would like to celebrate. I agree. Let's look forward to some celebrations. And I do think like never underestimate. You're exactly right. The down ballot stuff, like there's going to be people who are already like not just in state ledge, but even like county official. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of stuff happening where people are winning right now, and they're like, "Oh my God, there hasn't been a Republican in 100 years." Like that's what we just saw in November with the gubernatorial. There was like those random, I think it
Mm.
was in Ohio. Isn't it funny that it's like not that long ago, and I'm like, what was that?
You got like a
Yeah,
hundred
can't
things
remember
you're moving
anything anymore.
towards. You're like, I know. the after action yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think you're right, and I hope you're right. And I think we're going to do everything in our power to get us there. But I have so enjoyed this conversation with you. I enjoy all conversations with you, as you know.
Mm.
And I
Karen,
just can't thank
who
you
knew
enough.
people we would just chat with each other and like then you're gonna tape it. And
I know,
I
that's what
didn't
I said. That's all we're going to do. We're just going to
I
hang
was
out and chat.
I was
Yeah.
feeling so like we weren't, properly prepared, preventing poor performance, whatever the
Yeah.
thing
Oh, yeah.
that and
Yeah.
and I
From our
was
former boss, Speaker Emeritus Nancy Pelosi. She always said that. And
and
then
I was like, well,
subsequently through the mouth of Brian Wolf.
I just um appreciate you so much and appreciate like time to hang out with you anytime. So I look forward to our next one, and I will
Well, next
definitely be
time, hopefully it'll be
celebrating
nicer
you.
weather. We can do this outside. Thanks for listening to Political Trail Mix. Make sure to follow and review wherever you get your podcasts and stay connected with me on Instagram and YouTube. Let's keep this conversation going.